bunch of Queen jamming here. Good evening. I'm going to wait a minute, let a few people that I know wanted to listen to this topic catch up. And then if you're listening, as this is will be a recording, you can just fast forward to when we actually start doing our thing. I put a post up today on Instagram, on our Instagram account. I did a little live feed over there to, hey Gregory, did a little live feed over there to talk about that post. If any of you saw it, this won't be redundant per se, but I wanted to share it in a format like here on YouTube where it will be something that's memorialized that we can view it later or have people comment on it, put their 2 cents on it. Hey dude, back to you. So the premise of the discussion here, I'll just read it to you. That way you guys know exactly what was said if you don't follow us on Instagram. I can get my other phone to cooperate. All right. So what I did was I posted a series of pictures. I know that this is not super high tech, but if you visit us on Instagram, you can read this. First picture was a group of American soldiers jumping off of a boat into the surf on Omaha Beach. Second photo is some tunnels, all right? These are man-made tunnels under the town of Niederwilz in Luxembourg. That's important. And the last photo, it's an aerial view of the cemetery at Normandy. All of this is pertinent. Just realized my fly was down. All of this is pertinent because today, June 6th, is the anniversary of Operation what? Who knows it? Who knows it? Today is the anniversary of DDay. And it's very meaningful. I titled this video, We Are Living History. There you go, man. Good job, Operation Overlord. So I posted these pictures up, and then I shared a little bit of family history. So D-Day is what that offensive was called, but it was actually Operation Overlord. He got it correct there. So I'm going to read you a couple paragraphs, all right? Just bear with me here. My grandfather, his name was Leon Laplace. That was my grandfather. He was born in a little town in Luxembourg. The home still stands today. He fought in the Pacific during World War II in the U.S. Navy. His grandmother, now this is my great-great-grandmother, died of a heart attack while hiding in the tunnels under Wiltz. So I just showed you that picture of those tunnels. That's the second image, during a Nazi bombing. So my great-great-grandma, they're hiding in that town of Luxembourg. Nazis are bombing the shit out of Luxembourg and their little town of Wiltz. And she died of what the history of it, the family account, they say she died of fright, which we figured must have been some type of heart event. So I go on to say here, her name was Catherine Schumacher, and I like to think that my grandfather avenged her. He went on to fight in the Pacific, as I told you. His hometown of Niederwilz has a memorial built to the liberators from the Nazis. That's the Americans. They still hold the Americans in high esteem for freeing them from the monsters during the Battle of the Bulge. For so those of you that don't know, after the initial invasion, that basically became the Battle of the Bulge. That lasted for several months. The Allied forces stormed across Europe, basically to all the way to Germany. So several months prior to the Battle of the Bulge, the Allies landed on the beaches of northern France on this day, the 6th of June, 1944. It was the largest beach landing in history, dubbed Operation Overlord, now often referred to as D-Day. 150,000 Americans and Allies, over 170,000 total, took the fight to one of the most evil regimes of recorded time. That last image, I just showed it to you guys, I'll share it with you again. is the Normandy Cemetery. It is the final resting place of 6,000 young men. Those young men traded all of their tomorrows for the people of Europe, their brothers that they fought alongside, and we here at home in the United States in this future today. Through their love and honor, they exchanged their life to rectify evil. Here's where I get a little angry. When some dumb son of a bitch, yep, I swore, tells me about all the wrongs America is responsible for, I remind them of these stories, of these rights. Every nation and people has regrettable failures, but there is none, not one, who's given more to protect the world than our people of the United States. Raise a glass to the brave men of Operation Overlord, for without them, evil, this is the truth, this is not opinion, evil would have triumphed. Honor them by exuding the same love that they shared for humanity by living a life worthy of such an enormous gift. So check that out. So I put that up today, and I had people telling me all kinds of nonsense. Look, here's the facts. Thank you, Daniel. Evil exists, all right? Evil exists for all of time. I had people bring up, well, America's responsible for slavery. I'm going to say a few things here that might ruffle some feathers, and it's going to be archived on YouTube. So if anybody has an issue and they want to look this up, maybe send it to one of my sponsors or choose not to do business with me, it'll be here for you to look up later and view. So somebody brought up, well, slavery. America's responsible for slavery. That is hogwash. America is not responsible for slavery. America and its colonists participated in slavery, regrettably, as did almost every major country in world history. Most European countries. Many European countries were the ones that were heading to Africa, as well as many other countries, scooping people up. Portugal brought many African slaves to South America and Central America. American Indians, South American natives, Central American natives, they were all enslaved. Jews were enslaved, the Israelites, by the Egyptians, in mass, in mass. My Irish blood, I'm 25% Irish, and the Brits, they were enslaved by the Romans. If you look at this history, it is so simple to see if you care to look at it. But unfortunately, it's not a good narrative when people wish to point fingers, because by pointing fingers, what are we doing? We are freeing ourselves of, what's a good way to say this? We're freeing ourselves of responsibility for whatever ills we have today in our life. All right? So here's my takeaway. Here's why I said you and I are living history. Check this out. Think about the world, what would have happened. So at the time, if you look at history, World War I, after World War I, America lost a lot of young men, okay? Just saw a couple comments there. I wanted to make sure I was taking in what you guys were saying. America lost a lot of young men. So we became an isolationist. Now, right? We as a people decided, I'm going to adjust this camera a little bit more, guys. Sorry about that. We decided, hey, we're going to just lock down our borders, mind our business, let the world mind theirs. Well, guess what? Germany, the Blitzkrieg, they invaded Poland. They started invading most of Europe. Then a little thing called Pearl Harbor happened, and we were thrust into World War II. Now, there's some conspiracy theorists out there. Do your thing. I've been involved in too much government to believe in many high-level conspiracies because politicians aren't that smart. Truth. Here's my point, though, guys. Imagine what would have happened if Roosevelt, he had to go to Congress and sell them on us going to war. Okay? Imagine what would have happened had we stayed out of Europe. Europe would have fallen to the Nazis. The Nazis would have overtaken Europe. That's not an opinion. Britain wasn't going to beat them without our help. We created so much out of that war, so much modern medicine, modern flight, automobiles, weapons, so much stuff. Yes, I will. But that's not why I'm on here to talk about that carbine. Although that carbine is one of the weapons, not it itself, that's one of the weapons that made its way across Europe and in the Pacific during the Second World War. So hear me out. So had we not engaged in that battle, not just the Battle of D-Day, but in general, the Second World War, Nazis would have won. The world would be a completely different place, and I guarantee you and I would not be having this conversation via the cool internet, also invented by Americans. It's funny to me when people bag on Americans and they don't think about, I just mentioned flight, invented by Americans, automobiles invented by Americans, computers invented by Americans, most modern medicine pioneered and invented by Americans, cell phones, televisions, radio, tires. I mean, you can just keep naming all of the things that came out of the ingenuity in growth that we Americans create. Yeah, I'm taking some credit for that. You should take some credit for that too. Be proud of your lineage. Be proud of it. So here's the thing. That last picture I showed you, let's take a peek at that. No, it's kind of crummy to see. But you guys can Google this. Google Normandy Cemetery. All right? Every one of those little white spots, that white spot is a marker. It's a Jewish star. It's a Catholic cross. Okay? With an American soldier underneath it. Over 6,000 in that cemetery alone. Over 6,000 young boys. You guys follow what I'm saying here? Climbed those hills into machine gun fire, cannon fire, airplanes, you name it, superior odds, knowing that many of them were going to face annihilation, yet they did it. Now we have young people, not so many old people, but many young people that forget what that level of sacrifice truly is. So you are living history. They traded that day, and throughout the war. But that day I want to talk about because it was a turning point. That operation was so huge and such an undertaking without, check it out, no cell phones. There was nobody texting. There was no email. There was not even a lot of people able to send letters just because of the difficulty and time constraint. The flow of information was so slow, and look what those people did. The amount of manpower mobilized. It's amazing. I'm sorry, when I'm talking and I read a comment, it makes me stop. Not telling you not to write comments, though, please do. Your life today, if you are a United States citizen, you owe it to those men I just showed you that picture of. You owe it. I don't want to say to every U.S. service member, because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those that traded every day of their life after they died so that you could go on to live. Now, I've heard some people tell me, F you, it's my right to live how I want. You're right. You're right. And that's the attitude that has caused our country to take a downward spiral into the toilet. Because we no longer are grateful. We no longer look at a cemetery full of white marble markers and remember that 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old men ran into bullets so that you and I can sit here today without Nazis and without the Japanese flag flying over our capitals. That's big duty. That's a big deal. That's heavy duty stuff. That is not some minuscule. I think if our schools are not teaching this, I'm sorry about that. But you know what? What I'm about to tell you, nobody should take the wrong way. It's very interesting to me that we have these amazing devices. I've got 2 of them in my possession right here. Anything you want to know is at your fingertips. There's really no excuse to not have access to all of the amazing information. I'm going to whack one more light on here, guys. Sorry about that. They care more about prisons because prisons bring money. They don't care about schools. All right, Greg, see, like that's the kind of thing which I'm about to talk about. First off, who is they? Who's they? Second of all, there is no they. There is no such they. There is you, there's me, there's him, there's her. I have a 95% rule. I talked about this earlier today with some other people, and I talk about this in our classes. This is just my personal idea about how the world works. My 95% rule. Check it out. 95% of people do not realize how ignorant and stupid that they actually are. 95% of people are actually looking for somebody else to pull the load for them. I don't mean that people are not going to work and doing chores. I'm talking about actually rising to the occasion of life, not looking for excuses, not looking for reasons to say it's his fault, it's her fault, it's them, it's them. This is my life. This is my life that was given to me by my parents, but traded for the life of others. I want you guys to fully embrace this. Over 1.3 million to 1.7 million, depending on what numbers you look at. That's the population of Chicago. That many men and women died in defense, with a uniform on or not, of our country. Geez. Military industrial complex is the biggest funder of prison complexes. Yeah, so what I'm about to talk about, I'm going to touch on that, guys. Having been involved in government for some time, just because it's on Google doesn't mean it's true. So we need to start using what's called critical thinking. Is the industrial war complex a real thing? Sure. Which is made up of corporations, and corporations are made up of people. There's me and you. Here's the fun thing. The way our nation works, being the freest, most amazing country on earth, we are a democratic republic. So if you don't like things like the industrial war complex, change it. Change it. People complain to me and they want to point at things and say, that's the problem, that's the problem. And I always go, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, I can't do anything. Well, you can't do anything because you do not believe that you can do anything. You do not do anything. You do not affect any change because you do not see yourself as somebody that has the ability to affect change in the world around you. And until you begin to see yourself in that light, you will be nothing but that 95%. That 95% that has the boss, that is not impacting the world in a meaningful or profound way, that is looking at the world in a way that, I got to see what this is, somebody's saying. Our God-given rights are being taken away from us slowly. This is the kind of stuff that causes me to start welling up with some righteous rage, and here's why. Our God-given rights are not being taken away, and here's the funny thing. Any right that you feel is taken from you, it is your right to go defend. Whoever just said that, I think that was Greg, how many times have you been to your state capitol? How many county board meetings, city hall meetings have you been to? How many times have you not voted? How many times have you helped a candidate? How many times have you went and found a candidate that you thought could make a difference? All of these things can be affected. So funny thing, like we've all got, I'm assuming most of us are together here because we have the united appreciation of firearms. Yeah, I'm not going to fixate on what Eisenhower said. I know the speech well. I'm talking about solutions, not just being a conspiratorial theorist that wants to look at what we think is. I'm talking about what is. That said, the firearms. Many of you, if you're my age or older, probably remember a time when you couldn't carry a gun almost anywhere in the country. It was not always our right. This is fun with the Second Amendment people. I piss people off all the time when I talk about this. It was not always our right to walk around with guns in the United States. There have been laws banning concealed carry as old as this nation. If you don't believe me, Do some damn research, real research. Don't look at some biased website. Do real factual research. Laws that banned carry permits for constitutional carry is at an all-time high. It is. And why is it at an all-time high? It's at an all-time high because people, I'm going to pat myself on a little back right here, people like myself and many others fought to change that. Elected lawmakers who would do what they're supposed to do, which is do what their constituents want them to do. You didn't know you could carry? Well, there you go, man. Every single state in the nation has some legal provisions to carry. Don't get me wrong. That does not mean that every state has great laws, but every state, mine of Illinois being the last one, has pretty decent laws. We're like the middle of the pack. But I don't want to get mired into that quagmire. I want to make my point here. Don't sidetrack me. Laws ebb and flow. Guys, check this out. Did you guys know, I'm going to lay a few facts on you about laws that when we think about equality or our rights, we're thinking about a pie in the sky notion that we think existed in this country that never did. That's a fact. So check this out. Let's say you guys were, I'm going to assume most of you are men, but in case a woman watches this, it'll be okay. Let's imagine that you're married, husband or wife. Doesn't matter which side of the equation. You live in the Old West. Doesn't matter where you live. You live in it's 1850, and you're in Illinois. You're somewhere out in the Great Plains. Your husband dies, farming accident. You and your husband built that house from scratch. And you're the wife, you're left with a bunch of kids and this beautiful farm that you've built, and you've got animals and you've got hay put up for winter. Well, your husband didn't have a will. Well, you know what the law was then? The property just went to his next male heir. And oftentimes, like some third cousin from Detroit would come take the farm. That kind of stuff is real. I'm not pushing anything on you, but like if you want to argue about conspiracies, be my guest. That's not something I'm going to invest one bit of energy in. Because it's a fruitless circle. That said, yeah, there you go. Ask an American-born Japanese during the 40s. There you go. And we can talk about people of color. How about women not being able to vote? How about not being able to vote unless you owned land? I mean, there are so many things that we today take for granted. The social net that we have, that the fact that you can get Medicaid, Medicare, all these different health cares to take care of you if you don't have the ability to feed your children. There are a million ways to get food, to have your electric bill paid for. None of that shit existed, and people consider that to be their rights. Okay? So I want to predicate what I'm saying upon that. And if you don't agree with me, totally fine. You can flip this baby down now, but here's what I know. Yeah, there you go. Here's what I know. I need a sip of beer. Delicious Wake Maker Pale Ale. Anyway, folks like to look at who's the cause of their problems. They want to look at, how do I shut the comments off? I don't want to shut them off, only because it's blocking my ability to pay attention. It's like somebody talking to you while you're talking. Sorry, guys. So I'm involved in Second Amendment lobbying. I'm involved in education, and I'm involved in lawmaking. And I do help with elections. We just worked a couple campaigns this last season. And there's a reason I do that, because I know if I want to actually make some change, we have to do something that will create change. Talking is nothing. You can sit on a bar stool, you can sit with your buddies, and you can talk. I can talk about lifting weights, or I can pick something up, right? I can talk about learning to shoot or getting better, but until you load the gun, go to the range, and apply some action, you're not going to get any better. So talking about conspiratorial theories, which I said again, Matt, or pointing fingers at them or they, None of that changes shit. That's it, Justin. That's what I said. That was the way our laws were written. So my wife upstairs right now, back in the day, if I died and didn't have a will, my next closest male heir would have the rights to my property. How, that nowadays we would be like, what are you crazy? So when we talk about rights, it's crazy to me how many more rights we have today, how many more rights. For example, in my home state, we have a rental property that we rent. Thankfully, we have good renters. If somebody here in Illinois just stops paying their rent, it could take 2 or 3 years to make them leave. 100 years ago, somebody just come shoot you. So that's pretty good protection under the law for people these days. I don't want to get in the quagmire. What I want to talk to you guys about is this. We can spend our time looking at who here, there is to blame for our unhappiness, our sense of guilt or inadequacy, our depression, our lack of money, our lack of physical or mental health. We can look at all that. Well, if my boss just did this or that, or if my local government stopped hosing me with taxes, or if the feds stopped doing this, or I was born in a bad area so I didn't have the same opportunities. Well, I want to make sure you guys understand. While I had good parents that loved me, I wore my sister's clothes, okay? I mean, like, yeah, I had boys' clothes too, but I remember wearing my older sister's pants. We didn't have a lot of money. It was quite normal in my upbringing, and I don't want to insult my parents by saying it, but to have the electric shut off because they couldn't pay the bill. So I didn't come from some place where somebody handed me anything. I started my own business when I was 18 years old, which was over 20 years now, and hacked it out, man. So when I'm talking to you guys about this stuff, I want you to understand that it's coming from a place of, one, nobody handed me shit, and two, I have failed 5,000 times for every time I've succeeded. And in that, I have developed a tenacious appetite for figuring out how not to screw up again. And I have figured out a streamlined approach to living and being happy. And here's all it is. Check it out. And now, I don't care who you are. Anybody that tells you some path to success, it's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. Check it out. Have a goal. I don't care what the goal is. I want to be an Olympic swimmer. I want $1 million. I want to get that girl at the restaurant to go on a date with me. I want to have a better, fitter body. I want to be able to shoot a bill drill in 2 seconds, whatever it is. Pick a goal. Okay? Now, here's where most people fall off the tracks. They say, I want to be happy, or I want to be rich, or I want to be a better shooter. That's not a goal. That's a wish. That's a dream. That's a pie in the sky notion of something. A goal is something that you can define and then create actionable steps. Actionable steps. So if your goal is like, I want to fly to the moon like Superman. Well, if you really think about that, can you put action to that? I guess you could smoke a bunch of pot and come up with a plan. But if we want to be real, I'm talking about things like, let's just pick one. I want to, just a cert gun, but let's have a goal of, you guys know what a bill drill is? A bill drill designed by Bill Wilson, founder of Wilson Combat. Draw, shoot, fire 6 rounds into an A zone at 7 yards. The power time's 2 seconds. So draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at 7 yards in 2 seconds. That's a pretty sporty time. So let's say that's your goal. So actionable steps. And I hope you're following me, because now you can take this and apply this to anything. So I've got the goal. I want to do a bill drill. Do you have a gun? Do you have a holster? So let's just assume you've got all the gear. You've got the ammo, you've got a range. Perfect. So now you've got the tools required to start working towards the goal. Next, can you draw the gun? Do you understand how to draw the gun and point the gun at the target? Hopefully, yes. So you start breaking that down into actionable steps. If your bullets are going all over the place at 7 yards, 21 feet, well, you better stop and work on the fundamentals of marksmanship to be able to put rounds where they're supposed to go every time, right? If you can't do that, there's no sense in trying to go faster. So you need to be able to create actionable steps. Here's the next thing that I have as number 3. You have to be really honest with yourself. And I think this is where most people become the 95% instead of that 5%. And who are those 5%? So there's a lot of folks in this world that look at corporations and rich people and people that are their boss, and they look at them like those people are doing something wrong. When in reality, those people that are rich or powerful are that way for the most part. Yes, there are anomalies, but for the most part, because they're doing the things required to be the boss, to have money. Now, some of you immediately are like, well, what about this person that got all that money? I'll tell you what, even if you have $1 billion, if you don't know how to keep it, you will lose it. Well, maybe not $1 billion, but you understand my point. And I don't, that if your brain went to that place, you know what you did? You made an excuse. You tried to find a way to circumvent the truth, which meant what? You weren't being honest. So number 3, you have to be brutally self-honest. And the reason that you have to be self-honest is you will go into that waste of space that I just started talking about. You want to start going down these rabbit holes that go to nowhere. Be my guest. That is for 95%ers, which I call not my friends, not the people that I want to be around, because they are not directing their path to some place that is finite and defined. I think you should start training whenever you legally can start training, whenever your parents will let you, if you're 14 years old. So here's the thing, guys. I look at my life, all the mistakes I've made, the good, the bad, the joys, and I am so grateful, so amazingly grateful to be alive, for one, but to live in a place that I get to do what I'm doing, that I get to try, that there's not some oppressive regime like the Nazis telling me what I can say, what I can think, what I can do. You understand? Those men that gave it up on D-Day, this day in June 1944, traded. Don't squander your life. Yes, you can live it as you will. Be my guest. If you're unhappy, change it. If you want more, go get it. You live but once, my friends. You live but one time. And here's the question I want you to ask yourselves. What kind of man, what kind of woman do you want to be? When you lay your head down at night and you close your eyes, are you chasing some pie-in-the-sky dream because it's something that you feel will make you happy? Or are you directing yourself to some end that will truly provide you happiness? Money doesn't make you happy. All these toys, they're cool, but they don't make me happy. All that stuff, when I'm gone, somebody else gets all that. I'm going to be dead. Okay? So things should not be the focus of how to become happy. That comes from gratitude. And today and every day, but today especially, be grateful that young boys under the cloak of darkness crossed the English Channel knowing that many of them were going to die, maybe themselves, maybe their best friend, maybe a brother, and they did it anyway. They did it because it was the right thing to do. They did it to honor you today. They knew that there would be a future without that evil oppression. We alive today that were not born at that time have no idea the evil that existed. When people tell me, what is the world coming to? People that say that don't know what they're talking about. We live in the most peaceful time in world history. The most peaceful time in world history. That's a fact. Go look up all the genocides that have taken place. Chinese, unfortunately, the Chinese this century, last century rather, the 20th century, one of the biggest genocides in human history. The Chinese proliferated. What the Nazis did paled in comparison. The Russians, the Armenian genocide, look at what happened all over the African continent. To this day, Genocide still taking place, but not like back in the day. Not like 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, where people were wiped out by plague and famine. We live in one of the safest and most peaceful times in the history of humankind. And when people look at, we have this flow of information now where we can see violence caught on film, caught on video, street violence and such, and we think, oh, this is so terrible. What is the world coming to? Well, there's always going to be evil people. What kind of man or woman do you want to be? What do you want to be? What do you want your children to say about you when you're gone? That question you should ask yourself often. And you should say, if I left today, what would they say? Don't answer that question, though, out of arrogance. Don't say, I want them to say he was great, he was wonderful, he was amazing. How about say he was honorable, he was honest, he was trustworthy? Are those not good things? He was the kind of guy or the kind of girl that if he or she said something, they did it, and you knew that you could depend on him. He loved his neighbor. Is that not a good thing? He looked out for the community, or she looked out for the community that they lived in. He wasn't selfish. He was generous. She was generous. Are those not good things? We have become so myopic, so focused on the bullshit, focused on what they or them are doing and how they're stopping us, that we are never truly living. And it's not them stopping us from living. We never started. Start. What is stopping you? That is how we are living history. Do not squander the amazing gift that you have of life today. Okay, so somebody just wrote 100 million murdered by governments. This is the fun thing that I like to remind people of. Governments are people. This is what it always comes down to, people. That type of broad stroke statement, it sounds good, because what it's doing is it's taking responsibility from you and me, and it's putting it off there on this government. It always comes down to people. It always comes down to somebody signs the order, somebody gives the command. It's you and my responsibility in the nation that we live in, the one that allows us. Any one of us could be president. Now, you could tell me that you don't believe me. I believe it. If that's what you truly wanted, now it's going to be the fight of your life to do it. Hey, Kankakee. I'm going to be down in Kankakee tomorrow, Steve. You got to stop reading comments when I'm talking. It's like I'm an old man now. We the people do rule. And I have been very fortunate that I began to believe that at some point and watched it work. I've watched people, come by and say hi. I have watched people that I helped become elected officials in local positions, state positions, federal positions. That's a big deal. And you can do the same. You know what though? That's not really the biggest way that we affect change. You know how we do that? By our actions, how we live. So if we start to think about what I just was talking about, things like honesty, being generous, being kind, being loving. People hear this and they're like, "Whoa, you teach people to use guns. How can you say that?" I would much rather love you and not fight you than fight you. But I will tell you this, if I have to fight you, I will kill you. I will win, and I will go home, drink beer, and tell my family that somebody made me do something that I didn't want to do. You understand? So there's a difference. And I would still feel bad that I had to do it, and I would still feel bad for your family that lost you. So I think this is the path I wanted to take this discussion. I don't want to I don't want to be too long-winded. I think from time to time, we all need to be reminded of what a blessed place that we live in, and remember the vast sacrifice. If this is not causing you to feel what I'm saying, not because of who I am and that I'm saying it, but what the words mean, if that's not causing you, man, just to be humbled by the fact that there are graves full of young men that traded every day from the day that they laid it down for you. You could say, well, they didn't know me, they didn't do it for me. Yes, they did. And that, my friends, is the beauty of it. That is the beauty of it. And if you don't see it, then you need to start changing what you're thinking about and what you're focusing on. You need to start changing what it is you are inputting into yourself. Because you can make any life that you choose. Any life. Any life. You can create it. If you don't believe that you can, you cannot. You cannot. No government can give you the life that you want. If you went into Harvard tomorrow and they said, hey, we'll slip you a diploma. Even a diploma from an Ivy League school is not going to give you the life you want if you don't think that you can create it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Honor the gift that you have. Honor it by living with honor. Honor it by living with a purpose to proliferate the good that those men did for you. Be the living history that they left behind. Be the living history that they left behind and show honor to them for the great gift that they gave to you. I'm going to leave it at that. We have some awesome classes coming up. If anybody's interested, CarryTrainer.com. Our S12 event is in Nashville, Tennessee this year. Check it out. It's going to be 3 awesome days. We're going to be tight with a group of guys living together for 3 days, training like crazy. Outlaw X, I hope you can make it. Hope you can make it. Guys, any questions before I split? Let me know. Thank you, Josh. Amen. Prep show. If you don't live in the U.S., I'm not going to have that discussion with you, not because of any reason other than if you don't know our politics and know what goes on. The world doesn't like Donald Trump. The world is happy to take the billions of dollars in aid that the U.S. provides around the globe. And that's the funny thing. The president is not Mike. The president is not us. I'm trying to read and talk. Mike might be. Yeah, you should get some trauma medicine training. Dummy round practice. Well, I don't think you shouldn't be training with dummy rounds to train with dummy rounds. You should be training with dummy rounds in order to learn whatever it is you're trying to learn. So, dummies. What's the point of this? The point of this is multifaceted. So, dummy round, I can use this to induce a malfunction, which would mimic a not really a malfunction, but a failure to fire rather. It's not a malfunction; the guns still function, but a failure to fire with like a bad primer. So you have to do a slap rack or tap rack, an immediate action drill. But one of the things that these things do better than anything is helping us to see what's happening when I got something with a magazine in it. I do. So, dummy round, empty chamber. So, I've got a dummy in here. I could do it with this gun without the dummy, but I want to show you. So, if you're having issues where you're shooting and missing the target, I want to see what's happening. There's a ton of footage, man. We've got hours of footage that'll be loaded on that. So if you're shooting and you're having issues going like this, that dummy round helps you identify that. Now, it doesn't fix it, it helps you identify it. So it's an identifier, it's shedding light on the problem. So use it to identify an issue. If you're using it for a malfunction, you can load these randomly into magazines with live rounds, and you have to perform an immediate action drill when this gets loaded into the chamber, meaning get the gun back up and running. I didn't see that Kimber question. Where'd it go there? Any opinion on Kimber, BP? Where did that go? I don't know that gun. I mean, as you can see, that's about half the pistols that I own. I've probably got more than my fair share of pistols. The criteria for me for a gun, just like back to our goal, what are you carrying it for? Is it just for a range? Is it just for shooting at the range? Is it something you're going to carry? I mean, you got to understand or decide what the gun's going to be for. So my criteria is something that's nauseatingly reliable. Every one of these guns is totally reliable. Every gun will break though. So anybody that's like, I shoot a Glock because it'll never break. Bullshit. I see them break all the time. I got a whole parts pile for them. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Alexis. Everything breaks. So find what works best. You know, I love these double single Berettas. I've got a couple of them tuned by Wilson Combat. Some people hate those, and I don't really much care for any of the arguments as to what's better or worse. I care about what can you shoot well, what can you conceal in or around your body, not in, but like in the vicinity, and is it going to do what you need it to do? Capacity is a real concern. Anybody that tells you it's not, that hasn't looked at the problems of gunfighting. You know, something like this, for example. Love these little J frames. They're great guns. Much better than nothing. But that argument of better than nothing, like I drive a really nice pickup truck with leather seats in it. And I could be driving like an old Ford Escort and say, well, it's better than nothing. But I don't want to drive an old Ford or Escort. I want the pickup truck with cooled leather seats. Call me a snob. I drove junk cars my whole life. I don't want to. So better than nothing. If money is a concern, then yes. If money, like if I couldn't afford a new Glock or a new pistol, I'd probably go buy like a used Glock and then just refurbish the springs in it for $20 and know that I had a reliable gun. Guys will send me messages and they're like, they buy these, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but they buy stuff that's subpar. There's a reason that like most mainstream guns are $400, $500, $600, and then there's guns that are $189. They're junk. That's what that's all about. Even like as an extra gun, why do you want an extra gun that's junk? I'd rather have one gun that worked well. So kind of sidetracking from your point. I'm sorry. I've got 3 or 4 Kimbers. I know I've got a couple sitting out here somewhere. Yeah, here's a Kimber. It to me depends on what it is you're looking for. It's just a I'm not a. What's happening here? There we go. Range and carry in winter. So, like, what's carry in winter? I wonder about that sometimes. Do bad guys change from summer to winter? Have I seen anything I didn't like out of the 19X yet? I've probably put about 5,000-6,000 rounds through that gun. I'd have to count. I do keep track. I don't like about it. That's a good question. No. I mean, it for compared to a 4 series, Trigger's much nicer. It's highly accurate pistol. I mean, when I say highly accurate, I have put 3 holes at 20 yards or 3 bullets into the same hole at 20 yards. Now, I can't sit and do that over and over again, like in like a 10-shot group. I've had, a group like that big at 20 yards and had 3 of the bullet holes or 3 bullet holes penetrate the same hole. That has a lot to do with good ammunition. I shoot Supervel. You can't do that with junk ammunition at all. But a crappy gun won't do it either. So it's very accurate. I enjoy the gun. I'm really shooting it because we do classes that have kind of involved in it, and they're like, oh, you've got that super slick, the Wilson Combat, which I love this gun, and this gun is totally legit for carry. I carry it. It's not some unsafe match grade gun. It's set up for a fighting pistol. That's what it's set up for. But guys look at it and they're like, oh, it's like some crazy match gun. Man, I love that piece. I miss shooting and I can't wait to get back to shooting it. Thanks, Nicholas. Daniel Lopez, getting your wife comfortable around the tool. I would, Mark, don't worry about it, man. Getting your wife to be comfortable, number one thing, having a wife, is don't be a dick. I teach a lot of women that men will send to classes because they get frustrated. I was just with my daughter. My daughter and I, we've got another training session tomorrow. We're really trying to get her tuned up because she's about ready to be able to have her own pistol. And she's been shooting for years, but I've been doing some intense training with her. And I have a tendency, I think men do it in general, we get short. I just told you how to do it. Do it like I told you to do it. So I have to be calm. And I know I wouldn't do it with a paying customer, but I might get more frustrated with my wife or my child. So be cool. Outdoor shooting. If you go to an indoor range with your wife or kids and you're in a stall with stanchions, the concussion, you guys that have gone to indoor ranges, it pounds you. Much nicer outside if you can go outside because the concussion is released into the atmosphere. I think that helps a lot. Start with light calibers. When guys send me videos and it's like the big 44 mag there or 500 or some gun like that, and it's a video where the lady's going to whack herself in the face, that stuff pisses me off. Use a 9mm or a 22. 380, believe it or not. Here's the problem. 380 pistols, like here's a pretty good size 380. It's still tiny. This little thing. So if I load this up with 380 and I give it to a little lady, it's not that much, if not more, recoil than a 9mm because the gun's smaller. There's less for them to grab onto. So use a suitable gun. My favorite is the Walther PPQ and PPS. I have found, I've had students where they go buy like they go buy a Glock 43 because they're like, oh, it just felt perfect. Well, it did in the store, but you didn't shoot it. You shot my PPS, you shot my PPQ, and I have a 43. I carry one sometimes, but one of the issues is people don't think about this. They think smaller person, smaller gun. Well, that's kind of horseshit. Here's the facts. When a cartridge, not a bullet, but a cartridge like this goes off, whatever specific cartridge we're talking about, there is a specific amount of energy released. So I just talked about this in a video we were filming yesterday. So if I shoot, people ask about recoil control constantly. So if this gun goes off, and we've got it loaded with a specific 9mm, what's going to happen? If this gun was in a vacuum, if it was in space and it went off, what would happen? The gun would go like this. It'd go just like this, backwards, right? But because we build the guns like this, when the gun goes off and we're gripping it like this, the laws of physics, right? every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Well, if I was grabbing it like this and it went off, if you held your gun like this and you had somebody push the trigger, it would feel like this. It wouldn't feel like this. Why? Because the fulcrum point is now gone. There's not some fulcrum point. So when you take a gun, you make it smaller, but you put the same size cartridge in it, you have the same amount of energy being released, but you have less to hold on to. So the woman thing, man, get the right size gun. Be very patient. Don't push them. And I have found women are better shooters much more quickly than men because they pay attention. Yeah, man, prep show. I think that's 100% sure. I just said it now. I read it. With a 17 grip. I don't know what that means. Let me look. I gotta go back. I appreciate that, Matt. Is that true that the press check originates from the 1911? Well, if you think about just historically, none of these other 1911 was designed in 1908, 1909. Colt Browning was designing these guns. Where is one? There's an old school Colt. And this was the combat pistol. So before these, none of these other guns existed. So to say it originated with, now scary enough, a lot of guys, this is how they would press check. This is how Colonel Cooper of Gunsight taught people to press check. To take your finger and pull back. Yeah, put your finger by the muzzle. So it's not so much that it was designed. So check this out. Like somebody earlier asked about this. I mean, you should be able to press check with any gun. Look, I can inspect the chamber. I don't have to fully lock the bolt back. You can do that with an AR. You guys should be. I mean, if you're not already doing that, if you're already not press checking, so look, I can press check with my carbine. I know there's nothing in here, but I'm looking anyway. I can inspect the chamber. I'll grab a. I don't want to do it. I was going to put a dummy round in here, but I don't feel like walking away to go get it. But press checking is that isn't pistol specific. Any gun in here. We have a shotgun handy? Sure do. You know, shotgun, same thing. So with the shotgun, I can do a press check. Now this is really a chamber check. You're inspecting the condition of the weapon, but that's not specific to a 1911. AK safety, yep. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the little 38s. There's a Garand up there. I don't know if you can see it. This one actually saw time in 2 world wars. Oh. So this is an all original Springfield. This saw time in both World War II and Korea. It was pretty cool. This came from CMP, the Civilian Marksmanship Program, years ago. It's cool. You know, there's like a repair here where something cracked on the stock, and they did a nice patch to it. But yeah, these were battle rifles, man. It's a real deal. This kind of stuff, I think this white rifle weighs about 11 pounds, so you're talking almost twice that of an AR unloaded, but you're slinging 30-odd 6 rounds. Yeah. Anyway. Canada. Sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, for sure. I shoot that a lot, too. I don't treat it like a safe queen. I mean, it's clean, but I take it out and we chewed it. We chewed it. Is somebody asking me about a holster, or is that you guys talking amongst yourselves? IDPA is great. So here's the thing about like IDPA. A lot of people nowadays don't know this. Who founded IDPA? Bill Wilson, Larry Vickers, what the heck's his name? Ken Hackathorn. So these guys were trying to come up with a way to give practical pistol shooters a way to compete but develop great skills that could be applicable. Here's the problem is what men do, right? You want to compete. So now to compete, this stuff becomes a game. So there are a lot of things in USPSA, IPSC, IDPA that are not applicable to the street. Like when I have trained IDPA and USPSA, I shoot from my carry gear. I'm not going to shoot as fast as guys shooting open guns. They got an open gun is a grade of gun, but they're working outside the waistband with an open topped holster. I'm coming out of my inside the waistband holster, or at the very least a level 1 retention holster. So I'm not doing it to be a world champion. I'm doing it to test myself. So IDPA is great. It just depends on what you want to get out of it. If you're trying to become like a masterclass IDPA shooter to put trophies on the wall, nothing wrong with that, but you're going to get good if you invest the energy. At the time of World War II, if you need to go to battle, what would you choose? There was not a choice. This is what they were issued. That's not. It wasn't like an M1 carbine, huh? Did you guys watch the video we did on this? I mean, the M1 carbine's a nice little gun, but this is not. It's got about the same power as a 357 Magnum. It's a toy compared to that big boy. It was not meant to be a primary weapon at all. So, guys, I'm going to let you go. I've got a couple things I got to get done this evening. I want you to ponder what we said. I want to leave it with you. Thank you for that. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Matt. Life on Wheels. Go back and watch this video, man. We just talked about exactly that. Personally, I wouldn't buy a Taurus. The only Taurus that I own is a Taurus Judge, which I bought to do some tests with it. It sits in the safe. So not my jam. They do not have a great reliability history. Guys, I'm going to say peace out. Remember today. Remember the gift. Remember the sacrifice. Remember to maintain a heart full of gratitude and love for those that laid down their lives so that we can sit here today, tell jokes, have fun, drink beers, and enjoy the life that they did not have, that they traded for yours and mine. Be well. Love you guys.